This worksheet is called EDATE EOMONTH, and it represents the name of two date functions we'll be talking about. Anytime you're trying to deal with calculations across monthly boundaries, you run into the oddities of how we keep track of dates. Some months have 30 days, some 31, of course 28, 29, and sometimes calculations get a little tricky. We've got a list here in column B, various employees and their starting date. And based on their positions, they've got different probationary periods in months. We want to know when the probationary period ends. And all we really want to do is be adding 3 months, 6 months, whatever the number is, to the starting date over here. But how can we do that? There's not really a value for month. The function EDATE allows us to do this. It'll use the same day of the month, but of course there are some problems toward the end of the month if we're doing this manually. Let's start with the first example here in cell D2. Starting date, September 15th, 2018, 3-month probationary period. When does it end? We'll pick up the month out of cell C2, and we're expecting to see here December 15th of 2018, and that's what we get. And probably the next one down, 6 months, that's going to take us into June. And no surprises there. How about the next one, though? I'm not quite sure where that's headed. August, 3 months later. Well, normally you would expect to see, well, we know, of course, there's no date. I was about to say, normally you would expect to see, if you're seeing August 31st here, 3 months later, that's November. Well, there is no 31st, so we see the 30th. And that makes sense. I think that's what most of us would expect. I'll double click and copy these down the column. And again, you'll see some interesting combinations here too. And again, based on the results that we see here, I think that's what almost anybody would want. So those unusual number of days in the different months are accommodated easily with this function. Now, this company also has another option. It's unlikely we're going to see these 3 options all together, but just to show you how we might do this. The permanent status ends after the probationary period, but not until the end of that month when the probation ends. So here we use the function EOMONTH. Think of end of month. And now we're going to take that starting date in cell B2, comma, use the probationary period, months 3 here, but the answer here will be the end of the month that we saw over in column D. There it is. And I'll double click, copy these down the column. You see what's happening in all cases. Here's what we saw earlier when we simply said, how many months is it into the future? We got this answer. Let's go to the end of the month. Now, of course, in some cases they're the same as they are in these cases here, but here it's 3 days later, and here it's quite a bit later, and so on. EOMONTH. And if we had a slight variation on this and said it starts the first day of the next month, we could simply take this result here and add 1 to it. We could do it that way. Or simply, we could have changed the other formula over here and added the 1 at the end of that with a different heading at the top, of course, if we're doing that. So we could easily adjust here to make these accurate as well. We just add 1 to the end of the month.